Hey, it's me, MLB. Here is Torn Down the Middle, chapter 44, and this one is titled ... in 6 months. Just a little trigger warning, if you've lost a loved one, this might bring back some sad memories for you. Although I haven't gone into a lot of detail, it's still slightly confronting, so please feel free to skip this chapter if you need to. Your mental health is my first and foremost concern. For those that want to listen on, here comes the chapter. You dropped your bag in the hallway as you tore through the house to Grandma's room, with Bakugou hot on your tail. As you got to her door, you slowed and called her name gently as you entered. Her room was darkened slightly, and the pounding of your heart pulsated your vision so much that it distorted your focus. "Grandma?" you called again softly as you walked in and over to her bed. Bakugou stayed at the door as your mum came up behind him, and she walked around to the other side of Grandma's bed so that you were both either side. You took Grandma's hand and rubbed your thumb over the back of it tenderly, while your mum sobbed quietly in the background. Slowly you looked up at your Grandma's face as tears pricked the corners of your eyes. She looked very gaunt and pale, and she was chain breathing, one breath every few seconds, but she was still cognizant and rolled her head to the side to look at you, her eyes dull and distant. "Grandma?" you croaked, your voice cracking under the strong emotions that were building. She just continued to stare through you, unwilling or unable to communicate at that point. You remembered hearing somewhere that people who were about to pass away sometimes needed to be told that it was okay to go, otherwise they would keep hanging on unnecessarily, and you swallowed thickly as the weight of that responsibility clung to you. You didn't want to tell her it was okay to go. You didn't want her to go. She couldn't go now. Tears rolled down your cheeks as you continued to hold her hand in yours. "Grandma?" you sobbed. "I love you." Your mum cried harder, not helping the situation. Grandma rolled her head the other way and tried to focus on your mum, unsuccessfully. "She can hear you, Mum. You can talk to her," you sobbed, your voice quivering. You and your mum cried and talked to Grandma as best you could, telling her how much you both loved her and thanked her for being the person she was. Her breathing laboured further and you knew time was running short. A knot formed in your stomach, and a tightening occurred in your chest. You knew it was time. "Grandma, it's okay. You can go now," you bawled. "We'll be okay. You've done so well. You can rest." She rolled her head back to you and her lips moved, but nothing came out. Her breathing was every 5 to 7 seconds now, and you bawled as you held her hand. A few more minutes and she had gone. It was a haunting process that you hoped you'd never have to experience again in your life. When you and your mum realised she had gone, you both lost it completely. Your mum collapsed and Bakugou ran to her side to make sure she hadn't hurt herself in the fall, and you were feeling a little faint yourself, but managed to get to a chair nearby before collapsing. As you landed in the chair, you felt Bakugou's strong arms around you, and you wailed into his shoulder, your hands clutching into his shirt. Bakugou stayed with you and your mum until your dad got home, and the poor blonde had to do most of the explaining since you and your mum were a mess. Dad gave you a big hug with tears in his eyes, and then went to console your mum, while Bakugou took over consoling you. He didn't say anything, he just held you close and let you cry. He didn't even complain that you had drenched his shirt with tears and snot. You sobbed on and off for most of that evening and night, and he waited politely outside your bedroom door as you got changed into your pyjamas that night, and then led himself into your room and tucked you in before leaving. "Katsuki, wait," you sobbed. "Don't go. Please don't go." He took silent pity on you and hopped up onto the bed, crawling in behind you and snuggling into you to keep you company. His arm around you and his warmth behind you eased your sobbing, and soon you were out like a light. Bakugou gently got up and left, tiptoeing to the door before letting himself out. He said a quick condolences to your mum and dad who were sitting in the lounge room, got his bag, and then left. You didn't go to school the next day or the day after, and Shoto had dropped by one of those evenings to make sure you were okay. He bought some flowers for your mum and expressed his condolences and spent some time with you, then left. On the 3rd day after Grandma had passed away, you headed back to school. You were still a little down, but seeing your friends again did wonders to fill that aching void in your heart. "Oi," Bakugou whispered that afternoon from his seat behind you in class. "I know you might not be up for it, but we need to start practicing for the play." You nodded. "Yeah, I know. You want to start after class?" you whispered back over your shoulder. "Yeah," he replied. Hey, you greeted somewhat flatly as he entered the classroom after everyone had left and gone home. He jerked his chin up sharply in greeting, hands shoved in pockets. Where's your script? You asked. Ugh, forgot it in my locker, he grumbled. Don't worry, we can share mine, you said flatly. Hey, how are you? He asked, avoiding eye contact as he stood in front of you. I'm fine, you said softly as you stared down at your lap. You're not fine, he snorted. You know what fine stands for, yeah? You looked at him quizzically. Freaked out, insecure, neurotic and emotional, he replied. You let out a soft snort of exhale through your nose with a sly smirk. Where'd you get that from? Italian Job, he replied with a shrug. I loved that movie, he replied with a smile. Let's focus on this dumbass play, yeah? Take your mind off things, he said with a smirk. Okay, he replied, flicking the first few pages over and looking at Act 1. Let's go to Scene 5. That's where Romeo and Juliet meet. And there ends chapter 44. Stay tuned for chapter 45. Are we all okay? Man, that was a heavy chapter. This next one will be better.